Good to be here with Joel. We do this every week where we talk about finance, investing, and just make this whole money thing fun and make it easy for us to understand money economics and all that. So we're going to be flying solo today, but if a message, if you want to reach me, just DM. I'll try to talk for about, say, 30 minutes, then give the floor for questions, right? So this week, let's talk about debt, like borrowing, loans, credit scores, all that stuff. We all talk about Nigeria's debts, our debt revenues and all that, and where it's put us in this debt trap. So I think it was a good idea for us to talk about debt, personal. What is it? How can we the best practice for that if you want to like borrow and you want to grow your portfolio debt? What's the best way to do it? How can you do this like effectively in terms of personal finance? That's really what we want to talk about this week, right? So I think it's a good place to start is just to define what debt is. When you take on debt, that's basically front loaded consumption. So look at it that way. You earn money and then you spend, right? If you spend, you're spending your income. But once you borrow, you are going ahead of your income, taking that stream of income into today's consumption. So you are front loading consumption. You are spending tomorrow's income today. That's what debt is basically. If you borrow, you're spending what you would have earned in future today. So that basically means there's going to be a big hole in the future waiting for you. If you spend 2025's income in 2021, there's going to be a hole in 2025 waiting for you because you're going to have to pay back the principal and the interest. And that's going to take away the income that you would have made in 2025. So debt is front-loaded consumption. And there are just two types of debt. You can say there's good debt and there's bad debt. What is good debt? Good debt is any debt that you take that the income or the benefits from that debt is going to be, so we say, bigger than the interest that you're going to pay. So if you, for instance, borrowed 100,000 naira and you invested it today, and you were able to turn around 100,000 naira to 200,000 naira, that means, first of all, you can replace the income you've taken from the future, but you also have extra income on that. So you've made a profit from that borrowing from the future. So that's good debt. When the economic impact or the benefits of that debt is basically more than the cost of the debt, that's basically good debt. So you might say, for instance, if I borrow to buy a house, if I take a mortgage and the value of the house grows faster than the value or the cost of the debt, then that's also good debt, right? Because the value of the debt that I owe, it's not growing, it's the value of the asset that I bought with the debt is growing faster than the cost of the debt itself. So in quote unquote, that's good debt. So bad debt in the reverse would be when we borrow. So when we borrow from the future earnings and we spend it today, but the income from what we're spending today cannot cover the income we have borrowed from the future. So if you, for instance, use a credit card and you go on a holiday, for instance, so you've put debt, you've consumed tomorrow's money today on the holiday, but the holiday isn't going to give you any interest. There's no earnings from the holiday. Yes, you got no rest, you were able to go sightseeing, but there's no economic impact from that for you. So when the future comes, you're going to have that big hole because you can't pay off that income that you've borrowed. So good debt and bad debt. Good debt is basically when the economic life or the benefit exceeds the cost, the interest cost of the debt. And of course, bad debt is when the interest cost exceeds the economic life of the debt. That's basically what it is. So debt isn't bad. If you have the opportunity to borrow at a very, very low interest rate, and you can invest and earn higher than the interest cost, that's good for you. If you can borrow and buy an asset and the asset is going to pay you back higher than the cost, that's good debt. And it's nothing wrong with you borrowing at all. Nothing wrong at all. So good debt and bad debt. I also want to talk about the debt trap. What's a debt trap? If you do borrow, right? If you go borrow and you are paying interest and the debt is structured in such a way that you have what's called negative amortization. What that means is this is you don't pay the debt, so the interest is compounded back to the principal, just like how you earn the interest if you were investing. In this way, it's a reversal, right? So you borrow, say, 100,000 naira and you are paying 10%. But it's written in there that, listen, if you don't pay the interest, we're going to add the interest back to your principal. So if you miss the debt payment, you then owe 110,000 as principal, not as interest. And so your new debt interest payments are calculated on 110, not 100,000. That's when you enter into a debt trap, because now you can see that you can never really pay off that debt, because every time you don't pay, you are capitalizing your debt. So it's like a negative amortization where the debt is growing faster than your ability to pay. That's what you see in Nigeria. Nigeria is in that problem. Most of the debt that you see that Nigeria owed, especially before 2004, those foreign debt, about only 7 billion was actually borrowed. The bulk of that debt that you hear, the 45 billion, the bulk of that debt is all from late payments, fees, penalties, all that sort of stuff. The actual amount that was borrowed was not really up to, say, 10 billion. But negative amortization has basically pulled up that debt and taken to $45 billion. The same thing with the personal debt. If you have a loan where the debt is being amortized, the interest is amortized, i.e., is paid back into your principal, that's the same thing that could happen to you, because then you're no longer just paying the interest, they are adding the interest back to the principal, and that's what you're paying. So you want to be very, very careful when you sign a paper to ask, let me see the amortization. What happens if I default? What happens if I'm late? Can I pay this off very, very early? If I pay it off early, is there going to be a penalty if I do that? So you want to basically be clear on that before you borrow. Find out how the debt is going to be amortized. How are you going to be compounded and all that? What are the penalties? It's very, very important for you to do that and know where you stand on that. So we've talked about what debt is. We said it's front-loaded consumption. We've talked about good debt. We've talked about bad debt. If you find yourself in a situation where you are owing and you're like underwater, is there a method that you can basically use to get out of debt? Yes, there is. And I'm here to tell you all about it, right? So there are two ways that you can, or two methods that you can use to get yourself out of debt, right? The first way you can use is called the avalanche method. So there are going to be two ways. Think of a mountain with lots of snow, right? There's the avalanche method and there's the snowball method, right? So avalanche and snowball. Debt is going to be two things. Debt is going to be number one, either the amount of what you owe. What's the dollar figure, the naira figure, the amount that you owe. And the second element is going to be the interest rate on what you owe. So every time you see debt, it's going to be two elements for you. Number one, what do you owe? And number two, what is the interest cost on what you owe? So if you're in debt, the first thing you want to do is you want to write down exactly what you owe. So you get an Excel sheet or a piece of paper and you write down every debt that you owe. It doesn't matter if you owe interest on it. It doesn't matter if your partner gave you the money. Write down every debt that you owe. Get your bank account, call the banks, write down every one that you owe. Then what you want to do next is you want to put on the side of all the debt that you owe the interest rate that you are paying on that debt. So if the bank is charging you 10% per annum, write that down. The credit card is charging you 25% per month, write that down. So you list out all your debt, right? Then you list out the interest rate that you're paying on the debt. So that's the first thing you want to do. You basically want to, first of all, write down what you owe and the cost of the debt. Then before you even start to pay, what you want to do is to pick up the phone or go to the office and you want to ask those guys, listen, if I pay you, can I get a deal? Is there a way you guys can reduce the debt if I offer a prepayment or an early payment? You want to first of all negotiate with who you are owing, right? So you go to them and you say, hey, I want to pay this off, or can you guys give me a deal and all that? You first of all want to go out and talk, try to negotiate because they also want to get their money back. And if you go to them, they might say, hey, we're going to give you the discount if you pay. So first things first, write out your debt, put the interest rate, then call people and find out, can you get a good deal on the debt that you owe? Very, very important. If you then conclude that exercise, then you then go proper into the strategy to pay off your debt. And I told you guys before, there are two ways you can do this. Number one is going to be the avalanche method, and number two is going to be the snowfall method. In the snowfall method, the snowball method, you are paying off the lowest amount first. So when you list out all your debts, let's assume you owe 100 naira, then you owe 1,000 naira, and then you owe 10,000 naira. With the snowball method, you want to build momentum and give yourself early wins, right? So you pay off the lower one, the 1,000 naira first. You pay off the 10,000 before you go to the larger amount. You start with the lowest amount, you pay it off. Then you then take the what you would have paid to that lower amount to the next debt. Then you pay that off as well. Like that, you keep on moving from the lowest debt to the highest debt. So like a little snowball, you are rolling down the hill, and as you're going down the hill, you're getting better. So you start off with your lowest debt, for instance, your 100 naira debt, then you go to your 1,000 naira debt, then you go to your 10,000 naira debt, right? So you start from the lowest debt to the higher debt. The advantage of doing this is that it gives you a quick win, right? Because you can instantly have a quick win. You owe 10 people, you paid off nine of the first guy. Now you only owe 9 people. That gives you an instant emotional boost that you're doing something right. So that's the advantage of the snowball method. You can easily write it out, pay off, and you move on, right? So it gives you that boost, you have the success, and you can go ahead and then do better things. The other method is called the avalanche method. In that instance, you are doing the same thing, but instead of paying off the debt with the highest amount, you want to pay off the debt with the highest cost. In debt, we want to talk about the APR, the annual percentage rate, not the interest rate. We're going to come back to that, guys. When you want to borrow, you want to ask, what is the APR, not the interest rate? The interest rate is just the cost of the debt. That's the interest portion of the debt. The APR, which is called the annual percentage rate, that captures the total cost of the debt. So not just the interest rate, but also the management fees, the legal fees, the filing fees, and all that. And you want to basically ask to be very, very clear. So a bank might tell you, hey, we're going to lend you at 10% interest rate. But that's not the total cost of the debt. You want to find out the APR because the APR is the total cost, which is the interest plus the legal fees plus management fees, all costs associated with that loan. That's the APR. So whenever you take a loan, they give you the interest rate, ask them, what is the APR? The APR allows you to compare bank to bank because it's going to be the same score, APR to APR. But interest rate can differ. I can give you a lower interest rate, but a higher management fee. So if you go to one bank and I'm giving you a lower interest rate, you might think, hey, I'm getting a good deal. But you might not then get the best deal because your management fees are going to be higher. So always ask for the APR, not just the interest rate. But back to the avalanche method. In the avalanche method, you are paying the highest interest rate first, not the highest amount. So you want to tackle the most expensive debt and get it out of your books first. Because the most expensive debt is what is killing your balance sheet and your budget, right? That's what's taking away cash. So you want to go quickly and address and kill off what's sucking the cash out of your budget and your balance sheet. So you pay, if you use the same example, if you have 1,000, 2,000, and 3,000, right? But the debt is different, but the interest rate is like maybe the 1,000 naira loan has the highest interest rate. You want to pay that off first. So with the avalanche, you are paying off the highest interest rate. With the snowball, you are paying off the highest amount. The advantage of the avalanche is that you are basically reducing the cost of your loan. So you might be paying off 100 naira loan before you pay off a 10,000 naira loan, simply because the 100 naira loan costs you more than the 10,000 naira loan. I personally like the avalanche method because that's, to me, it touches your personal cash flow, and we're all about cash here. If you're paying off the highest loans, that does better for your balance sheet because you are reducing the amount of cash going out. But as long as you are getting progress, that's all I want to see. So, whichever method that you choose, as long as you are getting progress, you are paying off your debt, you are reducing how much cash is flowing to debt, that is success for you. And that's basically what you want to do, right? So we've defined debt. We've talked about good debt and bad debt. We've talked about how you can use these debt strategies to get out of debt. Let's talk about some points about debt, i.e., credit scores, right? If you want to borrow, like I've said, there's nothing wrong with you owing. Debt is a means of financing. If you have a business or in your personal life, without credit, it might be very difficult for you at the very beginning of your career when you have low cash flow and low earnings to accumulate assets. When you first of all start off, you will basically have low earnings potential. So you might want to take on debt to be able to buy assets, right? So debt is a good way to build and accumulate assets, but you want to use it the right way. So the first things first you want to do with debt is to understand how to use debt. You want to use debt to buy income generating assets or expense reducing assets, right? So if you are taking on debt, you are basically trying to buy income generating assets or expense reducing assets, which means if you have a credit card, you don't want to use your credit card and buy or go for a holiday. Let me put it that way. Don't use your credit card to go for a holiday because the holiday is not going to pay back the credit card. You can use your credit card and buy, say, goods for your business or fix your car that takes to work because that gives you income and also reduces your expenses. So you can absorb that cost by the income that you are making. But try not to use debt when you are not going to get an income or you are not going to reduce expenses. That's basically the simple rule that you want to adopt with debt. If I'm taking on debt, am I going to invest it in something that's going to pay me back interest or going to reduce my income? If the answer is no, then you want to spend your savings on that activity. So if you want to go for a holiday, save money and go for a holiday with your saved income. Remember, debt is front-loaded consumption. If you take the income that you have made and you spend it today on a holiday, then going forward, there's going to be a hole that you have to fill one way or the other. So the simple rule for debt is if you are going to borrow, use it only for income generating or expense reducing activities. That way you can then be sure that, listen, I can pay back my debt because, hey, I used it to do this and I'm going to get it back. Very, very important. How do you borrow? You have to start to look at your credit scores. In Nigeria, we're just starting to get credit scores. And there's a company in Nigeria doing credit scores. So it's going to be a thing going forward as you see lots of fintech and you see lots of all these products out there. Invariably, credit scores are going to be a big thing in Nigeria. There's going to be a way that people that want to lend you money have to find out if you are a good borrower. Credit scores are basically what we call FICO scores. That's the most popular type of credit scores. And what FICO scores does it looks at how you spend money and how you pay back, and it gives you a number. And the higher the number, the better. So, for instance, if you have the FICO score was to go anywhere from say 400 to say 800, right? And if you're on 800, that means that your ability to repay is prime. You take loans and you repay loans, so that is good. So that's what the companies want to see, right? That you have the ability to take a loan and to pay back a loan. So you want to get a good credit score. But remember, the rules of credit are sometimes funny. You might not like it, but that's the rule of credit. So, what are the four things that enable you to get a good credit score? Why are we getting a good credit score? Because we want to have the ability to borrow at a lower APR, right? So, credit scores allow us to borrow good debt at a lower APR. And we've talked about APR. We said we don't use interest rates. The APR is the interest rate plus all the fees, the management fees and all. So we have a better picture. So we're talking about credit scores now because we want to be able to borrow, right, at a lower APR. And that allows us to then invest at a lower cost and allows us to make a return when we borrow. So what are the four things the credit companies look out for when they want to lend you money? Out of your score, about 35% of your credit score, it's how well you pay back your debt. So if you borrow and you pay back on time, you already scored 35%. That goes 35% goes onto your credit score already. So what that means for you is that you want to pay back your debt on time. You never ever want to be late on a debt payment. Never, 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 never ever be late on the debt payment. Yeah. Number two, the second part of your score, about 30% of your score goes to how much of your credit you are using. So look at it this way. If you have a credit card of $1,000 and you max that credit card out to say $900, that's very bad because you're using almost 90% of your available credit. So that dings you. That's going to be a low score for you. You want to keep your credit card anywhere between 30 to say 40% of that card. That gives you a higher score of this 30%. So the lower you keep that utilization of the available credit, then the higher your score is going to be. So if you have a credit card, try to keep your credit card, try not to max it out, right? Try not to max out your credit card. So between just paying your debt on time and how much you max out your credit limit, you are already at 65% of your score. What is the other score? The 10% is going to be how long you have a credit score, right? So for instance, if you have a credit card from say your first credit card, you never ever want to shut that card down. The first credit card that you get, because that gives you history. That gives that you had a credit card since 2008, and that contributes to how long you've had a credit score. So you want to keep your first credit card. You don't want to shut it down, right? Then you also have a score of 10% for how many times you are looking for credit. So if you have a credit card and you go get a car loan and you go get a mortgage and you go get another credit card, as you are applying for credit, they are pulling your credit and they are dinging you. So the more you try to get credit, the more it's counting in quote against you, right? So you want to be very careful about applying. You go to the store, they'll be like, hey, you want to apply for a credit card? If you have one already, try not to apply because every time you get a personal loan or a credit card on auto loan, it's recorded. And the more times you pull your credit, the more time your credit comes down, right? So let me just rephrase the four items that give you a good credit score. The big one is how well or how timely you make your payments. If you make your payments on time, that gives you a huge 35% score. The second thing is how much of your available credit are you maxing out? If you have a credit card of $1,000 and you use $900, that's bad, right? The third one is going to be how long you've kept your credit card. So if you have a credit loan that's been running That's very, very good for you because it counts for you. Then, of course, you want to talk about the type and the how many types of loans do you have. If you have a mortgage, an auto loan, a credit card, that's very, very good. But don't try to pull all the time. The more times you seek credit, the more times you're going to be dinged, right? So there are a few tricks that you can do. You've got to use the system to your advantage. So there are a few tricks that you can do. Number one, I mean, if you have a kid, if you have a child that is, say, in university and you have a credit card, it is possible for you to make your child an authorized signer on your credit card. So the kid does not really have his own card, it's your card, but the kid gets a card, right? So he can use the card, but he doesn't really get credit. That's the problem. So he can just learn how to use the credit cards. If you have a kid abroad, you can put a kid on your credit card. He won't really get a score, but he will understand how to use credit. But once your kid is 18, you can go and apply for a credit card and co-sign with your kid, right? You can get a card, he can get a card, and then you can use that card and he gets the credit. So like both of you can use the card because you are joint signers on the card. So he gets to build credit. Imagine if your kid starts to build credit from university. All those years, he's buying his food, he's paying his tuition, he's paying his books with his own credit card that you're a co-signer on because he won't have any credit score. So it's going to be joint, you and him together on the card, right? So he gets all that credit history. That's a good way to build credit history for a young person. Or you get an auto loan. So that you get an auto loan, it's going to be in his name, but you are also a signer. So every time you pay that auto loan, it's also recording to him as long as it's above 18. All these are good loans because he's making a payment and it's going to his record that, listen, this guy has got an auto loan since he was 18. So when he graduates, for instance, when he's 22, he's built up 4 years of on-time payments. So that helps him if he wants to then buy a real car or get a house in, say, 2 years, he's already got about 6 years of credit. He's already ahead of his peers. So that's a very, very good way for you to build credit. I see people sometimes they go apply for a flat for their kid and they put the kid's name on the flat and they're also a co-signer and the guy is paying his tenancy because all those things are recorded and they go back into your credit and that allows you to then have a very, very good score. The higher your score is, then the lower your APR is to borrow. So if I have a kid and my kid has a credit card since he was 18 and he only uses that credit card just to pay for food and books. When he graduates, he has about 4 years of credits already. If both of you apply for credit, he's going to get a loan at a lower APR than you. So he's already ahead of you because then he can take the same loan and pay a lower interest rate from you, right? So that's what you want to try to get. You want to try to make sure that you have a good score because a good credit score, like I said, is essential for you. Debt is not bad. You have to play quote unquote that game. If you listen to there are a few guys that say, hey, don't borrow, borrowing is bad. Yes, borrowing, especially credit cards, are weapons of mass destruction. If you don't know how to use it, you're going to be in a whole lot of pain. But you want to get it so that you can play in that system. The system is designed that if you do not borrow, you do not get a credit score. So you have to borrow to get a credit score. A good way I see people sometimes they can afford to buy the car, but they get the car and they take a $5,000 loan just so that it records against their name, right? Because you want to always get that line of credit available for you. Okay. So, guys, I see your request to speak. I'm just going to get to about 5 more minutes and I'll throw the floor open. You can speak to me via DM on Twitter or you can request to speak and I'll put you on. I just want to get this all out. Then we can have a talk like a family, right? The last thing I'm going to really spend and talk about is what type of debt should you take for what type of activity? So I've talked about credit cards. Let me also talk about lines of credit and all that, and explain what they do mean and how you can use them. So if you want to borrow, there are just going to be two reasons for you to borrow. It's either you want to pay for something definite. So you want to buy a car and you want to pay for that car. So that's a simple one. You have a need, you want to pay for that need. Or you are not sure what you need in terms of the amount, but you know you're going to need cash going forward. For instance, you have a restaurant and you know every week you're going to buy beer for your restaurant. You don't know how much, but you want to have a working capital of, say, 100,000 naira every week because you're going to use it, right? But in the other instance, you want to buy a delivery van. So the delivery van is going to cost you 1 million. You want 1 million to buy it. These are two types of loans. And if you borrow good debt, but in the wrong debt product, you could also be in trouble, right? So if you want to build a house, for instance, you don't want to build a house with a credit card, no matter how low the interest is. Why? Because it's a short-term working capital loan. It's not a long-term loan. If interest rates move up, your credit card rates are going to move up and you'll be in a lot of trouble, right? So if you want to get a loan for a longer period, you want to lock in your rate for a longer period. So if you want a longer loan, you want to get a term loan. Term as in you dictate the term. You say, here, I want a 4, 5 year or 10-year loan to buy a house, and that's basically what you're going to use. But if you have what's called working capital, you want to buy beer to sell today. You just need to buy the beer, sell today, and pay tomorrow. That's when you want to use a credit card because you can swipe your card. Your card takes you about 22 days to pay. So when you swipe a credit card, you don't pay immediately. You pay after 22 days. So imagine I owned a restaurant. I would do all my purchases on my credit card because then I could buy my rice, buy my beer on my credit card, right? And I have 22 days to pay. So I could buy the rice, sell the rice, then go back and clear my card and do it all over and all over again. So for working capital, where I am just buying and selling, a credit card or a short-term line of credit is very, very good because then you can take and then pay back and clean up. So you take the loan, you use it, and then you pay back. They'll only charge you on how many days. If it's a line of credit, you're going to be charged on how long you've had the loan. If it's the credit card, it's going to be, say, the 22 or 23 days. But once you take a term loan, you're going to be charged month to month, no matter what you do, right? So you don't want to, if I'm buying beer for my restaurant, I don't want to be paying month by month. That's expensive. I want to buy the beer, sell the beer, and then pay my credit card before they even charge me. So the type of loan that you're going to take should match what you want to do with it. If you want to build a house, get a long-term mortgage because a house is very expensive, about say 25 million, right? So you want to get a long-term loan, otherwise called a mortgage. That's all it is, a long-term loan. But if you're just buying beer for the week to sell and pay back, you can use your credit card or you can use a line of credit because you can draw down, use the loan and pay back. So you avoid paying credit or you only pay for the days that you have used, right? So that's what you want to do. You want to be sure that not only are you doing good debt, you are going good debt with a low APR because you have a good credit score, but you are also matching your debt with the type of activity that you want to do, right? Very, very important. All right, guys. So I've told you guys tons of stuff there. I know I gave you guys a lot of information there from credit scores to amortization and all that. Lots of information there. I tried to cram a few MBA classes and practicals into what you're doing, but it's very important, especially if you're a young person, to build and maintain a good credit score. Do not joke with it. If you are young, make sure that you maintain a good credit score because it will help you, especially that all of you are Japan or you're leaving the country. If you go abroad, try to keep your credit in stellar condition. It's going to really, really help you. So let me go to the DMs and see questions that we have. All right, so Adetoku wants to know, what is negative amortization? I wasn't too clear when you spoke about it. So we spoke about negative amortization. All it means is this, right? That you borrow, and if you don't pay back, they add the interest to your principal. So now your new principal is going to be your borrowed amount plus the interest you missed now becomes your new principal. That's how you get into a debt trap. You don't want to do that. So before you borrow, make sure you ask about the terms. How is if I'm late, what happens to the debt? Can I pay it off, or is it going to be added back to my principal, right? Sonny, can you hear me? You can go for it. So did I answer the question on the amortization well? Oh, okay, thanks. Yeah, so yeah, Sonny, go for it. We can hear you. What's up? What's on your mind?
Yeah, thanks for this session. I really, really am enjoying it. I want to ask a question. There was something you said I needed clarity on it. So let's say you've collected a loan and the interest increases. I didn't really get that the rate at which you collected the loan would also be affected. Is that what you mean? Let's say you collected a loan from a provider at say 12%.
Yeah.
Then can the interest increase? Is there anything that can affect the terms and conditions that was initially agreed upon?
Yeah, good question. Good question. It depends on the type of loan. That's the point I'm trying to make, it on the type of loan. If you take a term loan for a term, you can specify that you want to borrow for 10 years at 5% and you can lock it in. But if you have all those short-term loans, like a line of credit or a credit card, those loans are what we call variable interest loans. The loans depend on, for instance, Nigeria, on the monetary policy rate or what the central bank's rate is. So if you take a credit card loan, for instance, and rates come down, your credit card rate will also come down. But if credit rates go up, your credit card rates will also go up. So you want to be very careful when you borrow to ask the provider, listen, what's going to happen if rates go up? Is this locked? Especially for mortgages, you have what you call term mortgages and what you call ARM mortgages, adjustable rate mortgages, where they tell you you're going to pay an interest rate maybe +1, but after 2 years, it goes to full commercial. So you want to be clear and ask the provider of that loan, what's going to happen? Is this a fixed rate or is it a variable rate? You want to be very, very clear on that. Sonny, do you have any other follow-up on that, or you're good?
Yes, I'm good on this. I have another question. Thanks for this clarity.
Yeah.
So, my other question is this. So let's say the loan was for 1 year, and you decided to pay it off after, say, 6 months.
Yeah.
Would the extra 6 months, since you paid it off, would they want to do the computation of the extra 6 months?
I get your question, yeah. Yeah, on that good question, great question. So you're basically asking, if I took a 1-year loan and I paid it off in, say, 2 months, will they charge me a fee or a penalty or for the whole 8 months? It depends. It depends really on what you sign, because it's going to be a decision by the lender. Also, on the type of loan that you take. If you take a line of credit, or what we call in Nigeria an overdraft, the overdraft only charges you what you borrow, right? So if you have an overdraft of 100,000 naira, it means you can go to the bank, write a check for 100,000, and the bank will honor it if you don't have any money, right? So if you have it for 1 day, they charge you for 1 day. If you have it for 1 month, they charge you for 1 month. That's for overdraft. But for a loan, some banks will tell you, if you pay early, we will charge you early redemption. Some banks will say, no problem. If you pay early, no problem. So it's going to be institution by institution. You're going to basically find out and say, if I pay this early, will I get a penalty? So these are the questions you want to ask when you are borrowing. What is the APR? If I pay early, would I pay a fee? If I don't pay, what happens to the interest? Is it going to be amortized back to my principal, or can I just pay off that interest? You want to basically ask those questions because that's a difference between you getting into a debt trap or a good loan and a bad loan. So great question, but it's going to be institution by institution or the type of loan that you take, right? Make sense?
Yes, it makes sense. One more question, please. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, sure, go for it.
Yeah, let's assume it's the likes of the rent money and the likes that we have here in Nigeria.
Mm-hmm.
Because I took a loan from them, but I didn't really have this kind of conversation. If I negotiate on time, if I decide to pay up on time, what happens? So I don't know. Would it be out of place to go back to such kind of agreement or conversation when they're running for like a month plus?
Yeah, I mean, you should never be shy of calling and negotiating. When I started, I said if you have a loan, the first thing you want to do is to try to negotiate better terms. You should never shy away from asking questions. They're not going to kill you. So you want to ask those questions and get those answers right. And then, but one thing I will say I've noticed about those, should we say those fintech loan guys, their loans are very expensive and they do a lot of negative amortization. Their loans are super, super expensive. That's my one disappointment with fintech in Nigeria. Those loans sometimes are loan shark operations. And I'm sorry to say that out here. You can't charge someone 8% a month and call that a loan. That's not a loan. That's debt. That's slave trade. So if you're paying 64% per annum, how are you supposed to pay off? And if you don't pay off, the 68% is put back into your principal. So I'll be very careful before you take a fintech loan. And I'm being very specific here. Ask a lot of questions, get it written down, get someone to look at it for you. If you don't know finance, get someone to look at it and explain what those things mean for you. Because once you owe those guys, I've seen texts where they text people's friends that you are owing them, which is totally unethical. So I'll be very, very careful and I'll read the fine print before I take all those loans. They are very expensive in my view. Yeah, well, thanks, Sonny. Yeah, I got another question here. So this guy is asking, so are you saying credit cards are a good investment? So let me be very, very clear about credit cards, right? Credit cards are very, very dangerous. If you have a credit card and you don't know how to use it, it's very, very dangerous. They are the highest to APR loans options out there. They are always double digit. The way you want to use a credit card is try to get a card that has a perk attached to it. So you see cards that give you, if you use our card, we give you miles. Or if you use our card, we give you points. Those are the ones you want to go for. What I personally do is this. I don't use a debit card, right? I use a credit card for my purchases. But once I swipe the card, I instantly go back and I pay off the card. So I'm using the credit card to get the points, not the credit. I have the money, so I use the credit card, I get the points, then I go off and just pay off the card immediately because I'm trying to quote unquote play that system to take advantage of it. So I have a card that gives you airline miles. So use the card, buy your gas, do everything you want to do with the card, get your points. Make sure you pay the credit card off. So he's asking again, is it okay to pay my credit card immediately I run the debt, or should I? So good question. So he's asking me, right, if I have a credit card and I have a dollar amount on a credit card, should I pay it off immediately or wait for the card to run for the month and then pay off my bill? Let me say this, and don't hold me to it, right? If you are a brand new card holder, you just got a credit card, brand new, first card, I would let the card run, then pay the bill. I wouldn't pay the card off immediately. So like if I swipe the card, they're going to charge me 22 days, right? I will wait, then pay the card off when they send me the bill. I won't pay the card off quickly and early. Why? Because I want that transaction to register and go to the credit bureau. I want it to register. I spend my card at the gas station, let it go and let it sit down on the card. then I pay my bill, right? So it registers me on the credit bureau. But if you're like a guy that already has a card and you're used to the card, you already have a credit score, sure, you can swipe the card on Monday and try to pay off, say, the next week, because you already have the score, right? That's what I would advise you to do. But if you adjust in terms of just getting in, you might want to establish that credit history. So you take a car loan, you want to make sure you pay your car loan so that it registers with the auto guy. Because whenever you do a transaction in financial services, you are recorded, and then that information is sent to the credit bureau. That's what happens. That's how the credit bureaus understand what you're doing and can say that you're a good borrower or a bad borrower. Yeah. So yeah, so someone just asking me to Ojo, thanks for that. Ojo is also reminding me that if you use a credit card to buy stuff, right, and maybe you get a fraud or you get a dispute, it's easier for you to dispute with the credit card. They don't hold your money, right? So it's the credit card's money. You can do your transaction, and if someone cheats you or someone steals money from you, you can report to the credit card company and they'll take care of it for you. But if it's like a debit card, it's your money. So your money is hung, you are arguing, but your money is tied up in the bank. But if you're using like a Visa and something happens to your Visa, yes, then this Visa is going to take care of that for you. You can file a dispute claim or file a fraud claim, and Visa can help you try to take care of that for you. So yeah, that's one advantage of using a credit card. Thanks, Mucho, for also reminding me about that, right? So yeah, messages are coming in now. This guy is asking, so can you talk about good debt and bad debt? So someone will just go over it again. So just to keep it simple, right? Good debt is essentially when the benefit of you spending your income today is going to be more than the interest cost of the loan. So if I take debt, is going to be front-loaded consumption. If I borrow money from myself in the future and I spend it today, I want to make sure I can generate either income or savings of expenses so that in future I cover that hole. You don't borrow from a bank, you borrow from yourself. Remember what I'm saying? You don't borrow from a bank, you are borrowing from yourself because you are the one that's going to pay back the bank. So when you go to a bank to get a loan, you are essentially saying to the bank, I want to borrow my own income from you. Give it to me today, and I'm going to take my income in future and give it back to you. That's essentially what you're saying, right? So if you borrow and you build a house and you live in the house, then your rent falls. You no longer pay rent, correct? That decrease in your expenses is what you're going to use to pay back the bank in terms of you're now paying a mortgage instead of a rent. So that's an example of good debt, that your mortgage savings are more than the interest cost or the cost of you paying rent. That's an example of a good debt. The benefits outweigh the loan, right? But what's going to be a bad debt is if you borrow from yourself and you have no income in the future, or you have no savings in the future, then when the time comes to pay back, you basically have no way of paying. So that's going to be a bad debt. Just to keep it as simple as that. The other elements are going to be if the APR is more than the life of the loan, things like that. But I think it's very, very simple to do that. You want to borrow from yourself with the ability to pay back yourself, right? So, what tax advantages do you have as a business owner when you buy things with your business name rather than personal details? Bola, great question. Let me advise you guys, right? If you do business, make sure you buy with the business name, right? Make sure you move all your expenses to the business. If you have a business, use the business. Why? Because a business is in the quote unquote business of making income. So the government will tell you that if you spend money to make money, we will allow you to deduct the expenses you used to make that money from paying taxes. So let me give you a crude example. let's say I use, let's say I live in a flat, and in that flat, that's where I live, right? I live in one room, but in the in the other room, I have a business in the other room. The government will say, for instance, that I can deduct the cost of that one room from my taxes. So because I use one room in my house to do business, I can deduct that cost of that one room from my income and not pay tax on it. What if I have a car and that car is my company car? So if I buy fuel in that car and I use that car to do business, I can deduct the cost of buying fuel from my income. So if I make 100,000 naira, I can deduct the cost of the fuel. I can deduct the cost of that room. I can deduct the cost if I go out. I can deduct the cost of lunch if I'm going to lunch with my business partner from my income because I registered as a business. But if I do business as a person, I can't deduct those expenses. But let's come to debt. If you borrow and you are paying back the interest in certain kinds of loans, the government will give you a tax advantage if you are paying interest. So if I go and borrow to build a house, the government in some countries will say you should take a tax deduction on the interest that you are paying for the mortgage. So already, if I buy a house, I get a tax deduction. But if my business buys a house, I'm getting not just a personal deduction, but my business is going to get an capital investment deduction as well. So, Bola, to answer your question, there are tons of tax advantages as a business owner when you quote unquote pass your expenses through the business. Remember, there are laws you also have to follow. You simply cannot just pass all expenses, but allowable expenses you should always put it through your company because you definitely get tons of should we say benefits from doing that. So read up, talk to a tax lawyer. It's something that you must do if you are a business owner. I write for Nairametrics. If you look, I did an article once, how to make money by paying taxes. It's on Nairametrics. Just Google my name, Carlo Arja Nairametrics, how to make money from paying taxes. It's a good article I did there about the many benefits that you can get from taxes. So thanks for that question. So this guy is also saying, is it part? Do we have credit scores in Nigeria? Yeah, we have credit scores in Nigeria. There's a company. I'm going to get the name for you. I'm just going to Google it real quick. It's a company in Nigeria doing credit scores, and they're doing a great job. I know the guy there. He's my good friend of mine. So let me see. Let's get the name for you so I can give that to you. Yeah, we've started to do credit scores. It's the CRC Credit Bureau Limited. So they do credit scores. So they manage it so that they're like FICO. So what happens now is if you go to a bank and you take a loan, the bank will send details of you, your BVN, are you paying on time, to CRC, and then CRC Credit Bureau basically keeps that information. So other banks can write and say, hey, is this guy a good borrower? Is he a good borrower? That sort of stuff. And then they can know. So it's more productive. It allows banks to screen you in terms of how well you pay back and all. So it's a good thing. So if you've been bad before, try not to be bad again. Make sure you pay your remember that I give you guys the 4 things that make your credit score. Number 1, if you take a loan, pay it on time. That's about 35% right there for credit score. Number 2, if you have a credit card, right, and you have a loan given to you, try not to max out your credit card because that puts you in a bad spot, right? So if you have a $1,000 credit card, don't spend what I mean, don't keep a balance. So you can spend 1,000 and pay it off immediately, but don't keep a balance, right? Because then you are dinging yourself. So pay on time. Don't keep a high balance on the card. Keep a good history. So if your first credit card, try not to basically close it down because the longer that you keep your credit card, the longer that you get that score. And also the mix of your credit. So you have an auto loan, you have a credit card, you have a mortgage. All that basically allows you to get those scores. But those first 2, paying on time and the percentage amount of your loan that you are taking, that gives you clearly about 65% of your score. So once you pay on time, you're nearly there, right? So you want to make sure that you do it. Very important, because many Nigerians are now going abroad. And once you go abroad, you're going to be seeing offers in your mailbox. Credit card, take a credit card. They're going to be throwing credit cards in your face. And if you're not used to it, it's like free money. You take a credit card, you go to the store, you walk into a store, they say, hey, do you like that TV? Yes. Apply for store credit. Take the TV today and pay 10 years. So it's like everything's all going to be new to you. You basically get all that cash, and before you know it, you have accumulated a whole amount of debt, right? So if you don't know about credit, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. So this is a very, very good. Someone asked me to do this, and I'm just doing it. So make sure you understand credits. It's going to be very easy when you travel to get credit. Very easy, especially if you were just going to the country brand new. There are companies that will specifically target you just because they can get a higher APR from you. So be very careful, right? Ojo, go for it, sir.
Hey, my question is, what is your take on leasing a car or buying a car brand new? Because I like what's it called? I like the security that a new car comes with, because you get the warranty. If anything happens to it, you can always take it back.
I hear you, bro.
If you are not the one.
I hear you. Good question. Good.
I've always heard lease what depreciates and buy what appreciates. Sometimes when I tell people I'm leasing a car, they're like, why are you wasting money? Because after the lease you give it back, you don't have that property back. So could you explain more on that, please? And I'm sure, like you said, people are now traveling outside of the country.
Yeah.
And it's a kind of decisions they will have to make once they get abroad. So if you could speak on that, please.
Thanks, Ojo. Yeah, that's a good one. Good question. So let me just say this way: the answer depends on where you live. The answer depends on where you live, because the currency or the economy in Nigeria, we have inflation. If you buy a car in Nigeria, you are basically going to save money over the long term, because the price of that same car in 3 years will be like double or 25% in addition. So even though the car is depreciating, the price of the car, the value of the car keeps on going up because of inflation. So if you are in Nigeria, the answer is going to be different from if you were, say, abroad. So let me answer the Nigerian part of it first. If you have the chance to buy a car, or the company is going to offer you a car, I would prefer in Nigeria, you get a new car if you can afford it. Why? Because the rates, the value of that car will depreciate, but the inflation on that car will also make the car value go up. So you might either be net, either even or lower depreciation, but you have an asset that you can dependably drive for, say, 5-6 years before you can change it. So for Nigeria, that's the answer. If you are abroad, it doesn't really matter. I would say buying a new car right now is really, I don't know if it's worth it, because you have, I'm sure you know, you have what they call certified used, where you can go into a car company, say Audi or Mercedes-Benz, and the leased cars that the companies manage, they are fleet cars. You can buy those cars from those companies. They are basically serviced by the companies. They are technically brand new cars. It's the same car, serviced by the company, technically brand new. Once you buy a brand new car and you drive off the lot, 25% goes off the car, 25% boom goes off the car. So you want to ask yourself, if it's not a luxury car where you're going to say, hey, it's a Rolls Royce, the value will hold, or it's like an Audi A8 that the value will hold, doesn't matter. If you're buying a Toyota, right, you want to ask yourself, okay, do I want to spend all this money to get a Toyota car, or do I want to get a certified used? It's going to be really your budget. For me personally, I would go for certified used, because I get a brand new car, but it's not going to be secondhand. It's been serviced by the company. The answer is, there's no real answer. It's going to be your budget and what you want to do. Lease and buy back, I can give you the maths of it, but it really depends on you. If you want to lease, you are using that car, that means every 3 years you get a brand new car, right? If you're leasing. But if you buy the car, It's yours. You don't get to get a brand new car. So it's really not naira and kobo or dollars and cents. It's more or less what is your objective. But for me, if I was in the States, I might go get a certified used, just the model off, right? I'm not a millionaire. I get a model off and I still have a brand new car. But if you can afford it, buy it. That's how I'll answer that question for you, Joe. Hope that's good.
That's fine. Thank you.
You're very welcome. And it goes also with a with a house. Kyrie, go for it. People in Nigeria always ask, should I rent or should I buy? We're going to have to talk about that in the second session. Should you rent a house or should you buy a house? I'm going to get some big boys to come talk to us on that, whether we should buy or rent. The answer would shock you. The answer would shock you even in Nigeria if you should buy or rent. But we're going to get some big boys. Hey, Kyrie, I can see you. Can go ahead, sir.
Okay. Good morning. Okay, I don't know where you are. Good morning, good afternoon, whichever. I want to find out. You said something about credit card.
Yeah.
Not leaving funds on your credit card. But I've been in forums.
Yeah.
Where, for Nigerians in diaspora.
Yeah.
Where other people advise that when you get your credit card, don't use beyond 30%.
Yeah.
Of it. It doesn't affect your credit record negatively.
Yeah. Let me be very, very clear on it right now, right? When you get a credit card, you have a credit balance on the card. So you get a card for say $1,000, right? You can swipe that card for $1,000, no problem. You can pay the card off to zero, no problem. But at the end of the card cycle, so you have 22 days to pay, right? At the end of the 22 days, what you carry over is the problem. If you carry over $900, that's a problem. You can carry over anything below 30%. That gives you a good score, right? It's what you carry over. What you put on the card is not a problem. So if you swipe the card for $1,000 and you pay off, it's good because you use the card, you pay the card off, excellent. But if you you have $1,000 on the card and you carry over that $1,000, maybe you carry over 900, it's very, very bad. It will ding you.
Carry over unspent or carry over debt.
So you have a card with 1,000 naira on the card, right? You spend 900. The card, your minimum to pay is going to be 2.5% or $25, whichever is more, right? So you can pay so if you have $1,000, what the card wants you to pay is just $25, right? Just $25. So you can pay $25 and you are okay. The card will tell you are fine, but that's bad because it will ding you because you are carrying over 900. You just pay the minimum. So, but if you carry over, say, $300 on the card, right? And that pays your minimum, but your percentage usage is 30%. You see the difference? It's how much of the card are you using? Not what you put on the card. How much of the card are you carrying over? The balance carried over. That's where they get you on.
So where does the credit bureau focus their attention on?
The four things I mentioned. Number one, do you pay on time? Number two, what is the amount you're carrying over? Number three, how long have you had that credit? Number four, how many types of credit you have? Auto loan, credit card, mortgage. The more, the better. The lower the utilization, the better. The more you pay, the better. Don't ask for credit. If you have a credit card and you go and apply for a credit card here, especially store credit cards, those ones are bad. They ding you on those ones. Personal lines of credit this year, FICO started to ding people that have high personal lines of credit because the banks had so much money, they were offering personal lines of credit to everyone. So FICO is now dinging you because if you go to any bank, they give you personal line of credit. So be very careful about personal loans, personal lines of credit. Yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. K.
You are very welcome, bro. So I got a question here. Let me see. How do you apply for a credit card in Nigeria? Most banks only offer credit cards to salary earners, but I'm a freelance writer. You only get a credit card if you have the quote unquote ability to repay, right? So if you have the ability to repay, then the bank will give you a credit card. A credit card is a loan. So if you can get a loan, you can get a credit card. That's basically the answer for you, right? So if you can get a credit card, you can get a loan. Naya, I can hear, go for it. Right, chick. Yeah, I can hear you. Go for it. Then you talked about getting free miles for some airline. If you want to get a credit card, I would advise you get a credit card that has points. Either you get ones that have points or offer you miles or offer you loyalty points. That's the whole idea. I mean, I'm not asking to go get credit. I'm saying play the system. The bank will tell you, get my credit card and I'll give you $500. Apply for the credit card, get it $500, but don't spend it, get the points. So you go to the way, every time you buy gas, they give you 3 points. At the end of the year, you can use your 3 points and buy stuff. That's the point I'm trying to make. You want to use the advantage that the card offers to you to get something for yourself, not just to get the credit per se. Yeah. So if you can apply for any normal loan, you can apply for a credit card. That's basically it, right? All right, oh, this is a long one. Jeez, this is a long question. What is, oh my God, I can't, this is too long, bro. Yeah, oh my God. So I can't read this. It's a bit too long, but I'll try to, Sepatunde, I'll answer you on text. It's a bit long, yeah? Sonny, Christ, you guys are everywhere. Yeah, so, yeah, go for it. You have the question, go for it. This is who Imadoye Abiora. We'll talk after the session. Guys, we're almost at the end of this session. Where are you guys going to? Yeah, almost at the end. We're supposed to be at 1 hour. So I'm just going to take the questions real quick and then we can call it a day. Bond, I can see you. Bond, not James. Go for it.
All right, good everybody.
How you doing?
So my question, I don't know if it's, for this platform, but mine is basically around mortgage. I've been having this, burden on how, we can bring in more millennials, more young people into, this booming real estate sector. So I just wanted your knowledge on how, young people can come in,
That's a tough question, bro. That's a tough question because I don't think Nigeria really has mortgages, right? What's a mortgage? A mortgage is a long-term loan. That's my definition. A long-term loan that you use to buy a house. That's a mortgage. Most quote-unquote mortgage in Nigeria is really like you see a loan for 5 years, 6 years. Okay, there's 10-year, 15-year with Federal Mortgage Bank, but it's like 5 million, less than 10 million. A 3-bedroom flat in Nigeria would cost you anywhere from 25 million minimum. So to get mortgage in Nigeria, a lot of things have to happen. You have to have a credit bureau. You have to have a refinance company that's going to be buying mortgages from the banks. You have to have single-digit credit. You have to have sites and services where the government will go and develop a large piece of land, and then you can then go and build your house and all that. You have to have the cost of building materials come down. So if this do not happen, you can never, ever have affordable housing. It's not going to happen. You can never have affordable housing without the government getting in. Housing is one thing the government has to personally get in for it to happen. The private sector alone cannot give you cheap, affordable homes. So the only route left for the millennial in Nigeria right now is off-plan. You go to one far-off place and you buy land in one jungle and you buy 2 plots minimum. You fence it, and if you are lucky, in 25 or 15 years, development gets to that place, you sell 1 plot, and then you build your home. That's what people have done since they've been coming to Lagos, and it's been working. So go to one far place in Lagos, near the swamp, buy 2 or 3 plots, fence it, and wait. Government comes there, you sell 1 plot, you build your flat or your bungalow, you sell the other one, you build and roof your house, and you live. The government has to get involved with mortgages. That's the only way it's going to get cheap, nothing else. So James, sorry, I don't have any rosy answers. All right, sir. Thank you so much for calling. Appreciate you. All right. Jennifer is asking, I had someone. Yeah, I know, right? So it's asking about mortgages. Mortgages are like crazy. If you want to, yeah, Jennifer, go for it. Go for it. I'll say. If you want to create wealth in any economy, you have to do mortgages. There is no way you can create wealth in a country without mortgages. People have got to basically be able to buy a house. Why is it important? Because when you buy a house, that's when you have what's called equity. You can then borrow on that house and then do other things with that borrowing. You can then buy a car or send your kids to school from the equity in your home. So when you see Americans, oh, credit card, we're going here. It's all loans built off the equity of their homes. And because it's a secured loan, then it's single digit. So you see, mortgages create jobs and they create economic security. The government has got to get involved. There is no other way you can do it. Sonny, did you have another question? Okay, Sonny said, let me see. Okay, I just want to have a question. Good morning. I want to make a suggestion. I live in the UK. I'm getting a credit card, arrested with loot box. All they do is savings of £20 on a monthly direct debit and they report to the credit bureau. I said in April, now I have a score of 768 out of 999 as reported. So let me see, what's your question? No, this is not, what's the name? That if you want to get credit, you have to get a loan. There is no other way. It's rigged. I didn't make the rules. The rules are like that, right? If you want to get a credit score, you have to get a loan. So that savings of £20 that you think you're doing, if you look well, it's recorded like a personal loan that you've taken. There is no other way you can get a credit score without getting a loan. No other way. So you can get what's called, there are some loans that are called backed, they're like cash-backed loans. So it's not really a loan, you put cash in the bank, then you take money from the same bank. So it's back to back, right? You don't really pay for it. Right, Chick, I've been approving you. Go ahead and speak, ma'am. I can hear you. What's the importance of having... Why should you have a good credit score in Nigeria? Because Nigeria is becoming more, look at it this way, all those fintech that you see are going to start to ask for credit scores very soon. They're already doing it right now. So get ready. That's the point. Ada, Anambra, if you don't have a good credit score, it will hurt you going forward. So start now to at least do those activities. Pay your debts on time, have a good spread of loans that you have, keep your utilization of credit low, and then you are now prepared. So in case stuff happens, you can basically get a good score. So I have Jennifer making a contribution. I am setting up a company where we millennials can invest in real estate in high value areas. How will they afford it, Jennifer? I'm interested to know how. Okay, a 3-bedroom flat costs 25 million. Where? Which high value area does a 3-bedroom flat cost 25 million? It's not possible. 50 people can contribute 500,000 or less, buy a carcass property and resell. So that's the point, Jennifer. They are buying to resell as an investment, but to make equity, they have to live in that house. That's what I'm saying. I want people to buy a house and live in the house so that they get the equity. If you are simply taking money from people to buy the house and to sell, it's just an investment, right? People have to own a home, live in that home, generate equity, and that's how you pass on wealth to generations, right? Yeah, you can get a house for 25 million in any high value area, Jennifer. There is nowhere. Lekki, there is no 3-bedroom flat that costs 25 million. Ikeja, Ogudu, Surulere, none cost 25 million naira for a 3-bedroom flat. None. It's not possible. The land alone, it's not going to be possible. So you might want to go a bit higher. I get the point you're making. It's a good investment. I could invest and buy and make a good return. The problem is that I want people to own a home, because when you own a home, you have equity and then you can transfer wealth. Okay, you're in Abuja. Maybe it's possible in Abuja, Gwagwalada, all those places far, far, far away. That's good. It might be possible there, yes, but maybe not Lagos. The problem that the real estate market in Nigeria is really Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt, and a few of these towns. I used to live in the north, and in the north, what I paid 1 year for a house in the north is what I paid for 1 month in Lagos, right? So I hear you. Guys, we should be rounding up anytime soon. Jennifer, yeah, send me some information. Let's bring you in next week. We're going to do mortgage next time. We'll bring in some mortgage people. You guys should talk about how can a young person buy or own a house in Nigeria. I'm going to bring about 2 or 3 of you guys here. Send me your details. We'll talk. Yeah. Okay, guys. So thank you guys for listening. Let me see if there's Bond. Do you have a comment, or you're fine? Go for it, sir. Yeah.
So I want to let you know, let's say I have a house, as a young person, probably in tech or entertainment. I bought a house of, let's say, 50 million in Lekki. So how much loan? Is that kind of a formula the bank used to?
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's the point I was making about mortgages, because mortgage is not just a house. I give an example. In America, every home is registered, right? So if you buy a home, you have to digitally go and register and transfer the property to your name, right? And each year they would value your house. So the property will be valued for taxation, and they will give you a value for your house, right? So if you buy a house in America, every year the right to letter and say, this is your tax and this is the value of the home. You can go to the bank and say, this is the value of my house. I want to take what's called a home equity loan on my home. So the bank will look at your house and then offer you a loan based off, say, 30%, for instance, of the home value. And the rate is very, very low because it's a secured loan. So it's a very, very good way. People take those loans in America and are able to refinance expensive loans, or to do businesses, or to do other projects. That's what we say in Nigeria. We have what's called, quote unquote, dead capital, because many people in Nigeria have got homes, but they can't use those homes as a mortgage because they do not have paperwork, they don't have CFO, so they can't go to the bank and get a loan. But in America, as long as you have the deed or it's in your name, you can go to a bank and borrow, get a home equity on that property. That's the difference. So all these things have got to be present before you can have a proper mortgage. Mortgage is more than just building a home. Mortgage is really about building the home, the laws, the refinance, the bank credits. All those have to be in place before you can have a real mortgage. That's the point I'm making, right? Okay, just searching through and then we're going to make it. Yeah. So, hello, Kalu. I'm a full-time student, just freelancing, no steady income. What would be the first step towards a good credit score for me? Right, check. I don't know where you are. If you're abroad, I would say try to get a credit card or try to get a loan. If you don't have any steady income, try to get someone to co-sign on a loan with you for. Get like a small loan, $100 loan, and buy something and then just pay it back. It's not the amount of the loan that gives you a good credit score. It's how well you pay. So you can go get a loan for $500, put it in the bank, and every month just pay them back. It will cost you interest, right? Maybe 2%, 3%, but you are getting that history that you took a loan and you paid back. If you don't have steady income, get someone to co-sign with you that can do that for you. That's if you live abroad. I don't know where you live. If you live in Nigeria, it's a bit difficult for you because we don't have that infrastructure set up to offer loans if you really don't have an income. So if you don't have an income in Nigeria, it's harder for you to get, because I don't know if they do co-sign and all that, but that's where I'll start from. If you want to get a good credit score, get someone to co-sign for you and start to pay back that loan on time. just so you have that history that you've taken a loan and you can pay back. That's what I would say, right? Hope I answered your question. Yeah. Jennifer is asking, I would like to know what is the benefit of having equity in your home. I thought it was more profitable to own a home and rent it out. Is it better to rent out your home and make money? Two things, Jennifer. Equity means that if I buy the house for ₦1 million, I bought the house for ₦1 million, right? And the home now is valued at ₦5 million. Rough calculation, the house has got ₦4 million equity, right? So I bought the house for 1 million. I'm selling the house for 5 million. The house has got 4 million equity. I can go to the bank if I own the house. Remember, when I bought the house, I did not pay 100% for the house. I paid just 20% to get the house. So the house is worth $1 million. I only paid 20% and I got the house. But the house is now worth 5 million, which means I have equity. I can then go to the bank and say, this 5 million that the house is worth, I want to borrow 2 million from the house. The bank will give me 2 million. You see that that's the equity in the home, the difference between what I'm owing and what the house is worth. Rent is just going to be income on the home. So you can only do a home equity if you own the home. So I can own a home, rent the home out, and still take an equity loan on the home. I can do those two things. So rent is going to be annual. Home equity loan is going to be for almost 20 years. These loans are for like almost 20 years. Imagine you own a home in Surulere and you can take a home equity loan on that home in Surulere. That means you can get a loan for almost 15, 20 years at 5%. Imagine if all the homes in Surulere, the owners could go to a bank and get a loan for 25 years at 15 million. What will happen to Nigeria? Suddenly you see a lot of consumption, a lot of wealth, because you can convert that fixed asset to cash. How would you pay back? You are paying back the loan over 20 years. Remember, it's not a 1 year loan. So if the home is worth 5 million and you take 2 million, that's what we're talking about today, debt. You then want to go and do business that will enable you to pay back the loan that you've taken. Yeah, if you in America, you don't pay 100% to buy the home. Anywhere in the West, if your home is worth $1 million, you can pay as low, if you're a first-time buyer, you can pay as low as 5% and own the home. So the home is worth ₦1 million. You can pay 5% first-time buyer, or even 20% as normal buyer, 25 if you want to. You can buy the home. If the value goes up, you are now sitting on equity. You can pull out that equity as cash from your home, go and invest in something in the stock market. That's what they do here. That's why you see they have quote unquote money, because they are taking equity from their home. All right, guys, I gotta let people go. Thank you so much for listening to the session this week. Yeah, if you send me a message on WhatsApp, I will answer. Have no fear. Jennifer, we're gonna talk. Don't worry, just stay. We're going to talk. So thanks, guys. I appreciate you guys for listening. Bond, I think I answered your question. I have tons of messages on the. I'll try to get to them. What course did you study? Danny, why don't you know the course I studied? Interesting question. All right. So, guys, thank you so much for listening. I appreciate you guys. Afi. All right. So next week, I will try to do the mortgage. If we can't do the mortgage, we'll get somebody else to talk. But it's 2 weeks from today. I'll see you guys again. Afi, can you be quick? Afi? All right. So thank you, guys. I appreciate all of you so much for listening. Got almost 100 guys in here at a time. I'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Thank you for listening. I'll just do a quick summary for the guys that came late. We've spoken about debt. We define debt as front-loaded consumption, right? So if you borrow, you are borrowing from yourself in the future to spend today, right? That's front-loaded consumption. There are two types of debt. There's good debt and there's bad debt. Good debt is you are taking a loan that the income or the profit or the reduction in expenses is going to be more, right? More than the interest or the cost of the loan. That's going to be good debt. If it's a bad debt, it's when the interest you're going to make from that loan is not going to be as much as the benefit that you're going to get. We spoke about credit scores, spoke about negative amortization. We talked about two ways to pay off your loan, either the avalanche or the snowfall method. The avalanche method, you are paying off the debt with the lowest amount first, yeah? But with the avalanche method, you are paying off the debt with the highest interest rate first. We spoke about asking for the APR, not just the interest rate. So when you go to the bank, don't ask for the interest rate. Ask the bank guy for the APR. If he does not know, walk away or ask for his manager. You want to get the APR because that's going to be your real interest cost, not the interest rate. Yeah. We spoke about borrowing this right type of loan for the right type of project. So if you want to do a long-term loan, you borrow a term loan. If you have working capital, you do either a credit card or a line of credit. Be careful to ask these questions. What happens if I don't pay? Is my interest going to be amortized and all that? Is the loan a fixed rate or a variable rate, right? If I pay off early, what happens? Can I keep that loan or will I get charged a fee? You want to ask all those questions. And then we spoke a lot about mortgages. So guys, we did a lot today and we are almost 2 hours in. So thank you so much. I appreciate you guys. I'll see you guys 2 weeks from today. If you do send me a message on the DM, I will answer about this. And I'm going to this is all recorded, so I'll put it up on the podcast. The podcast is the way I see it. It's there on my profile. I'll put the recording there. So in case you just missed it and you came late, you can always find it there. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Have a good day. Bye.